So what that means is people that are underemployed, or the people that due to certain barriers are not able to be employed in traditional settings. So the hidden workforce is a part of the workforce that, due to some of the systemic things we still have in place today in today's operating environment, actually don't have access towards certain opportunities. And we believe for 2024, this is something that organizations have to look at to say, what part of the workforce are you actually excluding due to the current practices that you have? How can you use data differently to start unearthing and really seeing where additional potential lies in terms of your talent practices?
I thought it as well a little bit about these kind of hidden capabilities that you may actually already have in your organization and that you're not tapping, and
Yeah.
because I have seen that in various companies, they just don't have a clue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even though we've gotten a lot smarter in the way we work, we've gotten a lot more technology, etc., there hasn't been significant and vast amounts of improvements in productivity, especially around knowledge work. So yes, we've seen some due to automation, etc. But what the productivity paradox is about, it asks the question to say, are we growing economies fast enough, and are we productive enough in organizations to actually get to a stage where we are creating new jobs? How organizations are thinking about productivity and how we're going to help people to be productive in new ways of work, right? How do we make sure that work is accessible to people from different backgrounds? How do we make sure that we are really inclusive in our work practices? And when we talk about that in a systemic way, and what I'm saying is degrees are not necessarily the only requirement for success in a particular job or for the attainment of a particular skill. Yet when you put down on a job description that a bachelor's degree is a minimum entry-level criteria for a particular job, you're excluding 70% of the workforce, for example. And due to some systemic issues, typically you are excluding certain parts of the workforce that are already feeling excluded. So what we are calling for here is just new practices in the DIB space that we believe allows people to have a voice, that breaks down some of the traditional barriers that we still find that inhibits opportunity towards certain parts of the workforce. And then over time really starts cultivating authentic change and holds organizations accountable where they are diversity washing as opposed to really taking a social stance and backing it up with evidence around how they are making those lived experiences. I think organizations need to discover in the DIB space, what does the current reality look like, right? And again here, have a look at what does your pay gap equity look like, for example. Have a look at what does your workforce mix look like in terms of where you're finding talent and where talent is coming from. So we've spoken a little bit about internal marketplaces already. We are finding that most companies still focus, whenever they think about talent, they kind of look external, and for some reason the talent acquisition space, is really important for them around attracting new talent. And yes, that is important, but we miss the career component around how do we manage the careers in our own organization and apply those skill sets differently. So when we start thinking about talent access, it's to ask that question around what is your internal mobility going to look like in future? How can we really drive that, and how do we tap into our own skill sets? I'm one of those people that believe career management, career mobility is something we talk about, but very few organizations have actually been able to really operationalize that as a competitive advantage in their own environments. For the very first time, people in both their personal and professional lives are utilizing AI in ways that they never have before, right? It's a lot more accessible to people. It's a lot friendlier for people to incorporate. When we start talking about the AI-empowered workforce, for me, I think that really happens when people have an understanding and have an acknowledgement of how do I work with AI as a companion for me in terms of actually increasing my own effectiveness at work. It leads towards better quality of work, but we have to help people understand how to do that, because there is generally a fear around AI and what it's going to mean for my job and what is going to be replaced. Jobs will look different. We're also going to have to start redesigning work in a very, very different way, keeping this in mind and keeping AI in mind. So for me, the AI-empowered workforce at an individual level is people understanding, where does AI fit in my job? How do I utilize it responsibly? And also within the organizational environment, where are we utilizing AI, and what does that roadmap for us look like in future? Because there is still a lot of questions around ethical use, responsible adoption, what's the implication of this going to be in future?